So it's been an interesting semester, and now that we're finished, I think I have some greater insight into different pieces of media and educational technology that we have at our fingertips to use in the classroom. At the same time, I'm not really sure how much my own personal opinions and things that I'll do in the class have actually changed. So just as another quick introduction to myself, I do teach digital media, which is all about using different types of media and technology to produce like original art and media that's all digital. So I think I come at this from a different standpoint than teachers who teach core classes, for example, like English and math, where they don't necessarily use media or technology in the classroom. I did learn the most about the flipped model of education, which is something that I was already familiar with, but hadn't ever really studied. I know teachers in my school use flipped lessons every once in a while. It's not something that they do all the time. Like we read about certain classes, for example, like the suburbs of Detroit, where they would just change the whole model to a flipped model. Teachers that I know do it every once in a while. It seems like it works, though there's definitely some questions as to the efficacy of the flipped classroom in results or in regards to test scores. But in terms of the way it works with students, it seems like there are some decent results with it. We also learned about videos, and we learned about like online discussions. What I use in class, like what I use a lot of the time in my own class, is Google Classroom, which is sort of a learning management system, which I use to like post assignments and sort of for feedback and grading and things like that. I also use my own class Moodle, which has all the state-provided questions and PowerPoints on that own site. So the flip model, there's some really great things about flipped classroom. I think that when it's used properly, it can allow for more one-on-one time between students and teachers, right? If students spend lecture time or like time learning principles at home and then come to class to work on projects, do discussions, group work, things like that, it allows for more face-to-face time with the teacher and with the students. This is really important. At the same time, like going in the same regard, when we talk about like Bloom's taxonomy, students do the lower level cognitive stuff at home, memorization, being able to recite, understand, things like that. And then they come into school and they do the higher level cognitive skills, such as producing original work. So for example, like if you're in an English class and you have the kids do the reading or learn the vocab words at home, then they can come into class and act, create a play, write sentences, do things like that. There are some limiting factors, I think, with the flipped classroom. The first is just like, are students going to do it? I think we see this problem now, especially in like lower income schools where kids don't do homework, they work, they don't have parents that support education. And if you don't have a parent that supports education and you've got stuff to do outside of school, you're not necessarily going to spend the time that you need to working with a flipped model. Right? The flipped model requires a lot of time outside of school. I know in my own class, for example, my students tell me very specifically that because it's a CTE class, because it's digital media, it doesn't count as much as a core class does. For their GPA, obviously, it counts the same unless they're taking honors or AP. But in terms of like, they think colleges don't look at it the same way. So they tell me they don't do homework for my class, so I don't assign it. And I wouldn't use a flipped model in my classroom unless I was like really desperate for something. So time. The other problem with the flip model is resources. Do students have computers at home? Do they have the internet? If they don't have access to these things, you're requiring them to stay after school to do this work, which I think sort of defeats the purpose a little bit. We also talked about videos, and I use videos all the time in class. I think they're super beneficial for learning, especially in my class. I'm teaching video production. I got to show examples, right? I have to use video in my class so that students actually understand what they're doing. And I use videos all the time. I don't necessarily use videos in the way that we learned how to use them, like with the flip model, like having kids go home and watch their own videos. I tend to show them in class, and then we discuss them in class. We also talked about and sort of learned a little bit about online discussion forums. And I think online discussions are interesting, but I think it takes away from the in-person aspect of discussions. And that's really important, especially as a CTE teacher where we're tasked with teaching students career skills and communication skills. In the end, I'm not really sure how much I would change my teaching from what I do now, but I definitely learned about different types of technology. Thank you.